That's okay.
So what I thought I would do, before we do the prayers in the RT, Bob Underwood is going to lead us in the RT and in the prayers, and Cathy is going to lead us in the Australian RT. And then after that, we're going to have a moment of silence because two of our community Bible lovers have passed away. Theus and Vicky Warner. I don't know how many of you knew Vicky, but she lived here for 30, 40 years. She was 87 years old. And Bob will talk a little bit about Theus, and Jackie will talk a little bit about Vicky. And then we have a lovely couple. I think they're lovely. And that's David and Catherine. And then Cathy is going to do her program. And anytime, if you consider it, she bought a few books. If you'd like to buy the book that her and Tom wrote, it's quite remarkable. Sally started to read it and said, wow. Is that what you said?
I said, wow, wow, wow.
Oh, she did a triple wow. So if everybody could stand, who can. Bob is, wait a minute. Oh, Bob is going to lead us right now.
Okay, you don't need it in.
Oh, that's it.
O Propartigar, the preserver and protector of all, you are without beginning and without end, non-dual, beyond comparison, and none can measure you. You are without color, without expression, without form, and without attributes. You are unlimited and unfathomable, beyond imagination and conception, eternal and imperishable. You are indivisible, and none can see you but with eyes divine. You always were, you always are, and you always will be. You are everywhere, you are in everything, and you are also beyond everywhere and beyond everything. You are in the firmament and in the depths. You are manifest and unmanifest, on all planes and beyond all planes. You are in the three worlds and also beyond the three worlds. You are imperceptible and independent. You are the Creator, the Lord of Lords, the knower of all minds and hearts. You are omnipotent and omnipresent. You are knowledge infinite, power infinite, and bliss infinite. You are the ocean of knowledge, all-knowing, infinitely knowing, the knower of the past, the present, and the future, and you are knowledge itself. You are all merciful and eternally benevolent. You are the soul of souls, the one with infinite attributes. You are the Trinity of truth, knowledge, and bliss. You are the source of truth, the ocean of love. You are the Ancient One, the highest of the high. You are Prabhu and Parameshwar. You are the beyond God and the beyond God also. You are Parabrahma, Allah, Elahi, Yazdan, Ahura Mazda, and God the Beloved. You named Zod, the only one worthy of worship. We repent, O God, most merciful, for all our sins, for every thought that was false or unjust or unclean, for every word spoken that ought not to have been spoken, for every deed done that ought not to have been done. We repent for every deed and word and thought inspired by selfishness, and for every deed and word and thought inspired by hatred. We repent most especially for every lustful thought and every lustful action, for every lie, for all hypocrisy, for every promise given but not fulfilled, and for all slander and backbiting. Most especially also we repent
for every action that has brought ruin to others, for every word or deed that has given others pain, and for every wish that pain should befall others. In your unbounded mercy, we ask you to forgive us, O God, for all these sins committed by us, and to forgive us for our constant failures to think and speak and act according to your will.
Amen. Beloved God,
Help us all to love you more and more, and more and more, and still yet more, till we become worthy of union with you. And help us all to hold fast to Baba's Dhamma until the very end.
Avatar Mere Baba Ki Jai. Avatar Mere Baba Ki Jai. Avatar Mere Baba Ki Jai.
O glorious eternal ancient one, your faces are bright transcendental sun. Lighten this dark world and the tears I weep. My heart made hair I give to you to keep. Creator yet creation bless you are. Truth and truth's body, divine avatar. Who through compassion the three worlds maintains. Destroy this ignorance that life sustains. These 5 lights are the whirling spokes of breath of the world's wheel that bears me unto death. Unless you who are infinitely kind, bring the wheels of which is conditioned mind. This incense is my love, these fruits my heart, which to please you I have shaped from my heart. Accept them as you would a simple flower that has no use beyond its shining hour. You are myself, I sing to you in praise, and make your love to bear me through the days. Till you, the ever-living perfect one, illume my darkness with your shining sun.
Avatar Mere Baba Ki Jai.
Avatar
Mere Baba Ki Jai. Avatar Mere Baba Ki Jai.
Hey, Bob. And if you'll all keep standing, please, and I will actually count in my mind up to 59 seconds for a moment of silence for Theus and Vicky Warner. Jai Baba. Bob is going to give us a few words about Theus.
Theus was a bit tired of living. I think all of us have heard the Mandali say that when Mere Baba passed on, that they were just lingering, that their life had been finished up, the beauty of their life had been taken away pretty much by the fact of his death, that he was no longer physically with us. And Theus picked up on that attitude. He felt pretty much the same way. He wanted to go. He was eager to go. And he said, for us to enjoy it, that he would be radiantly happy. He would enjoy his transition into another life, and he wanted us to remember it with joy and to have a ball. To that end, he may have designated some funds. He did say something about it. I don't know how serious he was, but he was serious about throwing a party in his honor and his memory. And so I think the funds will be found. If we have to cough them up ourselves, we will. And I hope that we'll have it fairly soon. He wants as much energy put into it as we can do. Dancing girls if necessary.
And boys.
I won't say pole dancers, but
Wow.
you know, but nevertheless, lots of live entertainment, lots of dancing, lots of party favors, that sort of thing. We'll see what comes of it, whether his estate is willing to chip in for it or whether he really set aside money or not. That remains to be seen. The idea is he wants us all to know that he is radiantly happy and for us to enjoy it. So, okay.
All right, for my 2 minutes, Vicky Warner was a very special person with a sharp mind, strong character, and I had a special connection with her because she was the youngest person in my mother's prayer group when I met her. In Florence, South Carolina, I was in my mid-20s. She was probably around 40. My mother was probably around 55 or so. So we met each other in our prime of youth. And we had this connection. And I stayed with her during one of the hurricanes before COVID. We kind of looked after each other. And she was a newspaper woman, and her husband, who died years ago, was a newspaper woman. And unfortunately, she became a little reclusive in the last 15 years or so because she would have enjoyed knowing all the recent additions to the Baba community. But, and I think she went at the perfect time. She pulled me in to help her about a week before she exited. And she told me, my time is near, and I want you to be in touch. I want you to come at least once a week. But she was going to need more assistance. And she had lived at home with her oxygen tank by her computer in one room for years and managed, but she was going to have to make some changes, and so she made the perfect change. And I don't think she wanted a memorial or a funeral. I don't know that they found her will yet. She didn't have any descendants. She just had a lot of cousins. So I'm sure the cousins are trying to find a will. So.
Hey. So now we have a little music. I'm just going to leave it at that. Now, if you don't all mind in the timing of things, is that, what's this guy's name?
Denny Moore.
Denny Moore would like to play his flute for us after them.
Yay.
But I don't know if he could actually compete with this young lady. It's not a matter of competing, it's a matter of just listening. And then Cathy, and then just as a, if the program goes to a certain time and we don't mind sitting a little longer, I didn't ask this particular person, and I had to ask him his name because my memory is shot. His name is Ed, and he sings opera. And I'm wondering if we have the time, if he'll close out the meeting with that.
Yeah.
We'll see. You're on.
Okay,
I got fired.
so a week or so ago, David asked me if we'd play a song, and I said, sure. He said, something uplifting. You put me in the spot, Dave. You know, we're Baba lovers. We like to sing about the sorrows of the path and the dust at his feet and the longing of separation. No, just kidding. I think I got something. I got a song here that's about coming home and coming back to Baba. And I first heard this song when I was a working guy, and I would give myself a treat to come here once a year. I always came on my birthday, and I stayed about 7 or 10 days, and I would just so look forward to getting away from the world and coming and just entering a cabin and just letting it all hang out, you know. So this is a song about coming home to Baba. And, you know, it's especially appropriate because I remember Theus loved the center so much, and he loved his Baba. And so did Dorothy Cassidy. She loved coming to the center, and Tom. So it's appropriate that we remember all of them with this song, I think. It's a rendition of Wagon Wheel, which is the Darius Rucker song. And I first heard this when I was packing once, and it was an especially stressful year. And I heard in the first verse, it's a song about him going back home after being gone a long time, and he was going to see his girlfriend or his wife or something. And the first line is, heading down to the land of the pines, thumbing my way down to North Carolina, hoping to God I see headlights. And so I thought, well, that's me. I'm going down to the land of the pines, South Carolina, hoping to God I see God. So it's a sing-along. The words to the chorus are, rock me, Baba, on your Dharma wheel. Rock me, Baba, till I can feel. Rock me, Baba, in the wind and the rain. Rock me, Baba, like a southbound train. So sing along, and rhythmic clapping is encouraged. You ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Heading on down to Myrtle Beach, my soul to cleanse, my mind to teach, hoping that I'm not too far gone. Well, I'm hanging on, I'm limping in. It's sad to see the shape I'm in, but I'm gonna make my Lord's home tonight. Here we go. So rock me, Baba, on your Dharma wheel. Rock me, Baba, till I can feel. Oh, Baba, rock me. And rock me, Baba, in the wind and the rain. Rock me, Baba, like a southbound train. Oh, Baba, rock me. Fighting the good fight, I'm living the life. I'm trying to rise above the strife. I'm feeling my hands slip from his Dhamma. Oh, don't you alright, I've been here before. I had my soul lifted at God's door, sliding on into Maiden Center. Baba, on your Dharma wheel. Rock me, Baba, till I can feel. Oh, Baba, rock me. And rock me, Baba, in the wind and the rain. Rock me, Baba, like a southbound train. Oh, Baba, rock me. Open my heart, now the healing's gonna start. Sliding on into Maiden Center. wanna come home to you. You're my soul's salvation. So rock me, Baba, on the Dharma wheel. Rock me, Baba, till I can feel. Ooh, Baba, rock me. And rock me, Baba, in the wind and the rain. Rock me, Baba, like a southbound train. Ooh, Baba, rock me. I'm fighting a good fight, I'm living the life. I'm trying to rise above the strife. I'm getting my handbag on its diamond. And it's gonna be alright. I've been here before. I had my soul lifted at God's door. We're sliding on into a center. Ready for you, Danny?
We want more of Baba's love. So please stay with that drum.
David, can we give him a microphone? No?
If he wants it, I don't
I
think
think so, because he plays so quiet.
Well, thank you.
Can you give that to him, David? The microphone?
I don't know how to set it up, Jeff.
I think it's set up.
Angela is the
Angela.
I'm not the tech today.
Microphone. The microphone's right there, but it's not started.
So I guess I'd say a few words here first. We're all getting a little older, and some of us have exceeded where we probably should have been. And I was not too much in favor of coming over here tonight. I tried everything in the world that I could to I told Ben I just had too rough of a day today, and he said, "But Dad, I want to go get something to eat." And I said, "Well, I'll drive you over and drop you off." And that didn't work, and I almost got over here, and I turned around and went back and got my flute, and I said, "Why aren't I coming over here tonight?" "Well, I don't feel good. That stinker, Theus, I had to pull this today, or yesterday." And I thought, doggone. So I thought, well, okay, Ben, you get to eat tonight, and I'm going to grab my flute and try it one more time. This flute isn't wanting to play, and neither is this other one I've got. So I thought, well, you know, it's one of those nights where I don't want to do anything. And it's one of those nights where I'm a part of this family that we've got here.
That's
right. And
Yay.
I can't think of a better place to be than being here right now, to tell you the truth. 'Cause I needed to be here tonight.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
We
hopefully
needed
my
you
flute-
here.
Hopefully my flute will give out, and then you can come in here and bring that beautiful flute over here and finish it.
Oh, Lord made it. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
So Bob, I don't know what we're going to do here. We're going to try to get a triple room with Theus. But I guess we better just hang together with this whole crowd here. I love you. I love you all so
We
much.
love you too.
God bless.
Thank you.
Thanks, Danny.
Well, I would personally like to give credit to that gray-haired fellow who just walked off the stage. I think his name is Ray, and I'd say no more. And so now we have our guest speaker, Miss Cathy.
You can drag the furniture.
See if this is okay.
You're just blending into the furniture. Make yourself at home. Woohoo. Oh. Little something here.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, what a treat. Oh, my golly. I have to say, just yeah.
Is that chair gonna work for you?
Did you want that other
You
chair?
know, this chair is a little bit too poshy.
Yeah, she needs the other
It
chair.
matches my
there.
outfit, but it
You just
doesn't.
want a regular char?
Regular chow.
Okay.
Thank you, thank you. Oh, thank you, David. I'll just pull this up. That's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, leave it right here.
Thank you. Oh, my golly. What a treat to remember Theus, and I did know,
Down a little lower.
yeah.
There we go.
We have these amazing people in the community. I just have to say that, I just have to talk close into it.
Yeah, push it closer, Kathy.
Okay, so
There you go.
when I heard Theus had passed, my first image was, I just could see Theus and Tom dancing together. Because I knew, Theus and Tom were so crazy about each other. And, that just made me feel like everything was going to be okay. just, can you imagine, how, somebody was saying tonight how happy Theus must be to be free of that body. And he didn't complain, he really didn't complain. Oh my golly. And so, anyway, and what was the name of the, I think it was called the White Horse Journal, wasn't it?
Yes.
That actually, Vicky put that together for a couple of years.
Yeah.
So she was very involved in the community, and that was a real bringing us together. I guess, was that in the 80s, Jackie, that happened? 90s? 90s, okay. So Vicky put together a magazine. Do you remember that? The White Horse Journal?
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you, Vicky, for that. Let's see, who is she dancing with? Baba. I guess.
Everybody.
Everybody. Okay. Along the lines of singing together, I'd love it if we could sing this song together, because
You want to stand, Cathy? Want the music stand?
What's that?
Music stand for the...
No, this is okay. Thank you. Sing a song of praise for the beloved. Keep his name ever on your lips. Sing a song of praise for the beloved. His name alone will set you free. His name alone will set you free. If you ever should find yourself in trouble and your whole world is upside down, if you ever should find yourself in trouble, his name alone will turn it around. His name alone will turn it around. Sing the song of praise for the beloved. Keep his name ever on your lips. Sing the song of praise for the beloved. His name alone will set you free. His name alone will set you free. Open up your heart and give him your loving. Open up your heart, give him all you can. Open up your heart, give him your loving. Give your love to the God-man. Give your love to the God-man. Sing the song of praise for the beloved. Keep his name ever on your lips. Sing the song of praise for the beloved. His name alone will set you free. His name alone will set you free. Don't worry about the days you may have missed him. Don't worry about the pain that you feel. Don't worry about the days you may have missed him. This whole game is just his whim. This whole game is just his whim. So why don't you sing a song of praise for the beloved? Keep his name ever on your lips. Sing a song of praise for the beloved. will set you free. His name alone set you free. Oh, golly. There's so many years of working on the book with Tom, but I have to say a slight correction. Where is that lovely David? Where is David? Okay. You said it was by Tom Riley and Cathy Riley. Okay, so I would say the book is by Tom Riley, and Cathy Riley really did a lot of help to get it all together, you know. I guess you'd say, because I didn't write the book, but editing and doing all sorts of, what would you call it?
Sous chef.
Legwork.
Oh, those are good, sous chef legwork. Yeah, I like that.
Compiling. Editor.
What?
Compiling.
Compiling.
Ghostwriter.
Editor.
Ghost? No, not really. Ghost. That's just what I'm trying to say. It wasn't. Let me just think of an example. Okay, good. Okay, so here was, I've mentioned this before. We had the whole manuscript together. It was already at the printers, and all at once, someone mentioned that Goethe, the German poet, had, upon breathing his last, raised himself up off his deathbed and said, "Mehr Licht." Okay, so Tom would often do this dying scene, but he said "Mehr Licht" in German means more light. Okay, so Tom had often enacted the dying scene of William Turner, his favorite painter, and you know, he would say, William Turner, upon breathing his last, would raise himself up, "More light," you know, and do a great dying scene. So when I heard that Goethe, somebody said, do you know Goethe, the wonderful German poet, said "Mehr Licht" upon breathing his last, all these red sirens went off in my mind. And I rushed to the computer Wikipedia, and sure enough, it looked like Goethe had said "Mehr Licht." And then I looked for Turner, and it said, supposedly Turner said, the sun was purported to have said, the sun is God. So then we had to go back, you know, so Tom had already passed away, so, you know, we had to rush back and sort of reconstruct part of the preface in which he told the scene of Turner upon, you know, breathing his last, saying "more light." You know, so it was things like that, you know, I mean, that was a very dramatic one, you know, example of changes that had to be made. There were so many, lots of collaborations with lots of people. In Woodstock, I see some of the folks here from New York. And Ed said he even bought some furniture from Tom at his antique store outside of Woodstock. You know, there was the Woodstock Historical Society. There were such a help. All sorts of organizations, the archives in India, the Sufis were a great help with photos. It could go on and on with all these wonderful people. I really do honestly say it took not just a village, but a city. I mean, it just, if you look at the acknowledgments at the back of the book, it's just on and on and on. So any of you who have worked on big projects, you know how it takes a lot of people to make something happen, like a book. And I feel like because Tom was such a fabulous storyteller, that it might be most telling to share some of the videos that I've put together and that were from his center talks. I don't know if you would, I don't know, sometimes at these book signings you have readings. Should I read something from the book, or would you rather just, I'm happy to look at,
Tom on the screen.
Tom on the screen.
I would like to hear one thing from the book.
One thing for the book.
And
Can
two
I get
things
it?
from the
Yes.
videos.
What's that?
And two things from the videos.
Right, okay, yes. Okay, so I'd say, of course, many of you have heard, most of you have heard the story about Baba calling Tom into the lagoon cabin. And of course, that's one of the reasons the book is called More Light. And I think that's one of my most favorite parts of the book. Oh, good. So thank you. I will
More light.
thank you. Okay. Okay. The other day, I had sent a free copy to the Woodstock historian who had helped over the years. And I called her up and she says, I'm just loving this book. She's not a Baba devotee. And she says, I'm on page 96 already. I just started, I can't stop. And that's just the middle of the lagoon cabin story. So I was so happy. Okay. Let's see. On the afternoon of May 21st, of course, 1958, the day following our private introduction to Baba, most of us were standing, including myself, as we faced the cabin. I was talking to Leatrice Shaw, who sat upon one of the large horizontal logs, her back to the cabin. Amongst us all, the psychic preoccupation with Baba was intense. At one moment, Margaret Crask, one of Baba's close ones from England, appeared before us. She had evidently just left the cabin and indicated that she had a message from Baba. She stood just to the right of the cabin near the roadside, close to the original kitchen. Everyone focused attention upon her, and conversation stopped as she looked toward us inquiringly. Quietness prevailed as she said, Meher Baba wants to see Tom Riley now. My response was instantaneous. I left Leatrice abruptly in mid-sentence and crossed the road. When I reached Margaret, all she said was, enter the cabin through the lakeside door and don't forget to remove your shoes before going in. She then walked away toward the original kitchen. I turned toward the cabin door. Suddenly, an alteration in my consciousness occurred. Unexperienced stillness consumed me. Everything I beheld reflected a sacredness. My entire being was at once elevated. At the steps of the lagoon side door, as I began removing my shoes, there occurred a transformation, a holiness which revealed itself within me. It took my breath away. It instilled within me the awakening of a reality I had never before experienced. At once, a peace descended upon me, and more than that, a sacredness. It was his presence, and it took primacy over everything else. As I opened the cabin door, in a brief instant, I saw on my left a small photograph of Baba as a boy. I thought, oh, what a heavenly child. And now, directly before me, seated in an armchair, I beheld Baba himself. He was surrounded by radiating silver light. It filled the entire room. At that moment, in brief suddenness, I recall the silver emanation of light projecting from the heads of saints and Christ himself in Renaissance and Baroque sculptures and paintings. In the room now, I beheld Baba within this brilliant effulgence. Never before had I experienced such shimmering light, such holiness. There, magically before me, Meher Baba was seated at the very center of this radiance. I was overwhelmed as he sat there facing me. I was his prime focus, his center of interest. He was beside himself with joy at seeing me. His gaze from an otherworldly dimension was transforming me as this heavenly silver light emanated from him. The entire ambience was suffused with his holiness, his presence. He was smiling, and from within this wondrous, sublime state, he extended his hand toward me. I took it in both of mine and kissed it. Opening his eyes, and with a gentle, subtle smile, he extended his open hand above and upon my head, then closed his eyes. He withdrew his hand, and I arose and made my way toward the door. Enthralled with his presence, and just before leaving, I paused and turned, gazing at him. In his divine state, holy light radiated around him, filling the room and my being. I had become one with the presence which he had bestowed upon me. I observed him smiling with his eyes closed. In the midst of such unspeakable beauty, I left the room.
Wow.
So, let's see, the fall before Tom passed, Phil and Jean Ludwig had come to visit, and how was the book coming? So we sat them in front of the computer, and we went through all the photos in the book and narrated them, and they were so touched by Tom's stories about each photo that they said maybe we should make a video of this, and so we did. And I worked with Greg Butler, and Tom and I sat before Greg Butler and a bunch of cameras, and for 2 months in November and December, we went through all the photos in the book and talked about them. And so then, of course, Tom passed just 2 months after this. I mean, I had no idea, but so I'd like to show one of the parts of this longer. We have going through all the photos in the book, but this is just chapters 3 and 4. Tom and I talking about the photos in the book shortly before he passed. Okay. Jeff's nudging. No, that's not the right one.
Okay.
Okay. Those are the snippets.
This is number 1.
Okie dokie.
And we have number 2 and 3.
Okay, so those are snippets, and the other one, do you have, or maybe we don't have?
I have the big ones, more like 1 and 2.
Yeah, 2. Do you have, I think that's number 2. Yeah. I think this is it. Let's see. Yes, good, thank you.
while at the new school in New York, one of your favorite professors was Dr.
I was taking a study in Indian philosophy from an individual who was born in India. He was from a Hindu background. And he taught very objectively the history of religious involvement in India.
No. His name was Dr. Sabod Chandra.
Sabod Chandra Roy, R-O-Y.
And he and Tom became good
agreeable
friends.
And very friendly. And he was quite amazing because he was very seriously recommended not only in India but in Europe and America.
So the wonderful connection that happened between Tom and Dr. Roy was that one day Tom went to Weiser's bookstore down in the village, and what did he see on a post but a big poster saying, just off the press,
God speaks.
So that was 2 years later, Tom sees Baba's name again and sees his photo. You went to Weiser's and there was Baba's face, and just off the press, God speaks. So of course you bought the book.
Read the book.
And then?
Was overwhelmed by its essence, which was so informative and fulfilling for me.
What you did was so interesting. The connection that happened was that you told Dr. Roy.
Yes, and he acquired the book somehow, and he was overwhelmed by the essences within the book.
He was blind, so he had somebody read him God Speaks. And
I'd forgotten.
And then when he finished it, he told you that the very night that the reader finished God Speaks, he had gone to a social gathering. Somewhere in Manhattan, he went to a social gathering, and who did he meet but Phyllis, Frederick,
and Adele.
And Adele Walken. And
they impressed him very seriously.
So he was thrilled. He had so inspired by God Speaks, and here were two of Meher Baba's close disciples.
Yeah, they were extremely well informed and highly intelligent.
Because this was the spring of '56, you got God Speaks. So you were given the phone numbers. Dr. Roy got the phone numbers for you of Adele and Phyllis.
I right away met them.
Then you called.
Connected with them.
And they told you
about the Winterfelds.
Yes. And so
marvelous husband and wife from Germany, and extremely well informed about the history of Indian philosophy and the study of Meher Baba's life.
That's right, because they had been Buddhists, before they discovered Meher Baba. So tell about your going up to meet Fred and Ella. Well, you did have a wonderful first meeting, and then you began attending. And that was
wonderful, wonderful variety of younger Americans.
And
some of them a bit older.
Mm-hmm. I think you were among the younger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Fred and Ella suggested that you write to Meher Baba. So we've included the first communication that you sent to Meher Baba, which is so beautifully written and was sent.
You want to read it?
Yes, would you read it, Tom? It's so beautiful.
Who did I write it to? I mean, but I sent it to. I didn't know where he was living.
I think Fred and Ella gave you this address. Sri Meher Baba, Grafton Road, Satara, India.
Oh, I see. Was he there now?
He was there at that time.
Oh, I see.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it would be wonderful.
Dear Meher Baba, I would have loved Jesus during his last hour in the garden. I love you now. Your servant who wants only to see you, Thomas Riley.
An amazing uncoincidence connected to this letter was that when we received this from the archives in India, you don't have a copy of this, that looking at the postmark for New York City, it says November 29th, 1956, which was just a few days before Baba's second accident outside of Satara. You were sending this just a few days before Baba's accident. So knowing that, would you mind reading that letter again? It means so much knowing that.
Dear Meher Baba, as I would have loved Jesus during his last hour in the garden, I love you now, your servant who wants only to see you, Thomas Riley.
You also connected with Darwin and Jean Shaw.
There was a husband and wife who were very, very seriously involved with Meher Baba and had formed gatherings to learn more about him. Here is a photograph of myself painting in my apartment in Greenwich Village in New York City.
So you would be like what?
Sitting at my easel and painting on a panel.
How old would you have been?
Probably, 23?
That was actually the year you saw Baba's photo, when you were 23.
Not long after that, I married. My wife's name was Yvonne Andro. We married and had a little child, a little female child, which we named Christina. And this is Fred Winterfeld from Germany at his and his wife's home in Manhattan. They had Monday evening meetings completely dedicated to Meher Baba.
So that really encapsulates that time of your connection with the early New York group before meeting Baba in 1958.
Quite a few people involved in Meher Baba. Younger people, older people.
Mm-hmm. So that's chapter 3. In 1957, Baba began talking about coming to the West, informing his devotees, and then in 58 it became clarified that he was coming in mid-May to 1958. Right.
And this photograph was taken within a building which was within or upon the the Mayer Center. And this was simply known as the barn. It was a building which had been built upon this land, which now became and ultimately would become a very important Baba Center on the east coast of America. And it was here that Baba would arrive and reveal himself to so many people who came there in 1958.
And every morning you all gathered in the barn?
We gathered around him within the barn every morning. And the rest of the program continued for the rest of the day. And here is Mayor Baba in another building on the center, known as the Lagoon Cabin.
So every afternoon, Baba would station himself in the Lagoon Cabin
and see specific individuals.
The first full afternoon of the 58 Sahabas, you and Yvonne were called in to meet Meher Baba as a couple. And it was interesting to me that when John Bass introduced you to Baba as artists from New York, this is what Baba said.
Yoga for the East is a means toward the fulfillment of the spiritual life, just as art in the West is a process toward the realization of the sacred within. So that was quite a revelation. This is the meaning and process of art. And this is a wonderful photograph of the wooded landscape within the heart of the center, with some of the buildings that were constructed there.
And in 58, there were low pine border fences around the inner part of the center. People would sit on these
long forms
and talk and
on
play.
either side of the roads within the natural earthen roads within the center were bordered on either side by large, round, and long pine logs. Here's Meher Baba with two of his Mandalay disciples and his
Adi
Irani, one of his close disciples, and on his left side another named Eric Jesawala.
This photo is such a nice one for me to have seen, because Tom, you're in this photo. And you see on the left side of the photo there's Dee Eaton and Larry Carish, and then behind young Larry is Tom. And Baba either just having been set down by the dancers or maybe about to be carried. And we included these two, this photo and this next one, in which Baba would sometimes use canes, because you were so aware that Baba had
a serious accident not long before leaving India to come to America. He had this accident in India.
And so used the cane sometimes and was carried by the dancers. And I think it was very touching that you were so aware that Baba was physically suffering, but he would not ever belie the suffering, but would always bear a cheerful countenance.
Yeah, he would never reflect it.
The next two photos are wonderful images of Baba's inviting the men to join him behind Baba's house when he was so playfully throwing the candy prasad.
Ready to throw this, what was known as prasad, to an individual to his right. And a moment later, when the throwing was fulfilled, he would throw it off to the left before him. And it would be grasped by another individual who had not expected such a gift.
So exactly what happened to you.
Yeah, it did happen to me. Yeah.
Your hand was just
waiting
up in the air.
It suddenly manifested in my hand. What was it?
A little candy.
Oh yeah, there it was.
Mm-hmm. And I remember you've often said you felt Baba was saying,
be prepared for the unexpected. Yeah.
And I remember behind the caretaker's cabin, Baba was situated with all of the 58 Sahavas, and Harold Rudd had asked Baba, could he play a tape of the life of the Buddha? And this was interesting to us because there you are, leaning against the side of the caretaker's cabin, as Baba was intensely listening to this tape. Very soon before leaving, during that 2 weeks, I think the day before leaving, Baba invited you all to go to the beach.
Some are men, some women.
Mm-hmm. And when you before you went to the beach, Baba had said he wanted you all to accompany him because he wanted everybody to find a shell.
Oh, for his female Mandali, or disciple, named Mara. So we went down to the beach itself, accompanied by Baba, and began the search. And I found what I thought was a perfect shell. And it was not extremely large, moderate in size, but filled with tiny little homes that were golden surfaced homes. And I was deeply impressed with that shell and thought she would love this one. Made sure it was quite clean, sand removed entirely, and brought it over to Baba. We studied it in a very focused way. And he returned it to me,
and then
touched his heart and his forehead with it, and handed the shell back to me. And this was rather disappointing to me.
Because you thought he wasn't going to give it to Mara. And then you became deeply moved as you walked back into the center, because you realized Baba had given this to you as a gift.
Yeah.
Which you now have for always.
Yeah.
You have that beautiful shell.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like it really, one thing I just loved about that story that you have shared before is that Baba was standing completely alone in the dunes.
Well, people were nearby searching the sand.
But it just, in my mind, I see you and Baba standing alone on the next to each other in the dunes, and Baba taking the shell,
pressing it
to his head and his heart,
and his head,
and then
directly returning it to me.
I was also so moved by your talking about going with him, I think the next day, to Wilmington, and as the plane left and taxied and took off into the skies,
What?
all you below, you were just going with him. Your hearts went with him.
Such a very, very important occasion, his departure. He was so fully aware of that as well. And cast his love upon us as he departed.
That's right, you said he was waving and
full of that departuring love.
So that's 1958.
Okay. We have time, do we have time for some more, a snippet or two of stories that are more, you know, the Tom, the zippity-doo-dah early days when Tom was in his heyday?
Yeah.
Is there, it would be nice to show a little bit, a few of the,
9 minutes.
okay, let's do it.
Number 2?
Yes, very good. Good idea.
I have to do the same, enlarging this little baby.
Yes, you know, I was 2.5 weeks early.
This
so
was 62.
I was planning next to the hotel. There was a wilderness, a forested wilderness. Seems strange in a place like Pune, but nevertheless it was. But there was a road that went into this wilderness, and at the end of the road there was a cul-de-sac and a large post office. So I had a couple of letters I had to mail. So I was planning on, walking into this road and into the post office. When I'm just about to do that, someone knocks at the door, and it's one of the hotel people saying that there's an individual who wants to see me out in the lobby. So I went out, and who is it but Meherji? And this is what he says. What are you doing today, Tom? I said, well, I'm about to walk over into the post office. He said, oh, I'd love to join you. I said, wonderful. So we began our walk down the street and then into this dirt gravel road going far into the post office. So we're walking along, getting acquainted and communicating, and ahead of me, it's very hilly, full of undulating landscape with lots of trees and hollow places and like caverns and what would you call it? Swales. And we're walking along, talking, and I look ahead, and down in one of these swales is an individual sitting there all by himself. And he's wearing simple cotton clothing. And as we get a little closer, I notice that he's muttering to himself and gesturing. And he's talking, like he's talking to somebody, but there's nobody there but him. And we stop, and I said, who is that man? And Maharji very immediately says, oh, he is a must. He is a must on the very highest regions of the fifth plane of consciousness. Baba has contacted him several times. I said, isn't that amazing? He looks, I mean, his clothing looks so white and clean. Yes, Baba has appointed people to take care of him. They feed him, they shave him, they clothe him. But he is very highly elevated on the fifth plane of consciousness. And I said, what's he doing? Muttering and gesturing. He says he's communicating with his beloved to take away all of his impressions, to rid himself of everything that stands in the way of his liberation. I said, oh, isn't that amazing? So he fascinated me. And in my pocket, I had an old Muslim coin. Because when I arrived at the Pune Hotel, the first question I asked the owners, Mr. and Mrs. Bilamoria, do you know anyone who sells ancient artifacts? Oh yes, they said, yes, we do, the Karachi wala, he sells them, that's what he does. And I said, please get in touch with him and send him over to see me. I'd like to see what he has to sell. Yes. So the very next day, the Karachi wala arrives, a very overweight Parsi guy, and he's got two huge sacks. And he shows me all these treasures, and I am stunned and astounded at the little bit of money he's asking for these ancient, beautiful little sculptures, metal things, little paintings, all kinds of fascinating art forms. And I realized, God in heaven, this is a gift, this is amazing. And so over the course of time, I bought many things from him. Actually, I spent about $600 throughout my time there in India, just from the Karachi wala alone. And one of the things I just happened to buy was this ancient, 400, 500-year-old silver coin. I just happened to have it in my pocket. So when I saw the bust muttering and gesturing and down in the hollow, I took the coin, and my impulse was to go down and give him the coin, to connect with him. So Maharji saw what I was about to do, and he says, oh, don't waste your time. He will only take the coin and he will only throw it away. No, don't bother. And I disregarded what Maharji said, and I walked down the steep through the trees and so on, the rocks. And there he was at the bottom. And when I reached him, he stopped muttering and gesturing and looked up at me, and I was amazed at the purity of his eyes and his skin. He was a man of about, I'd say, maybe 45 or so, but like he looked pure. And the eyes looked right at me with this innocence. And I took the coin and handed him the coin like this. And he looked at it, looked at me, closed his eyes for a moment and opened them again, and then took the coin and studied it very carefully all over, and closed his eyes again, and then tucked it inside of his shirt and touched it to his head. Yeah, thank you. Touched it to his head like this and looked at me right in the eyes and tucked it here. Put it in and then went into a silent state and then began, and I walked back up the hill. And Mayor, she said, "You are very blessed, very blessed. I was convinced he would throw it away." Isn't that amazing? During these, in the evening and before we went to Guru Prasad, there was one individual. There were not just Baba people in the hotel, but, you know, various, like, what's his name? The Russian premier. Yeah, I mean, there were all kinds of Indian business people, English business people like this. And there was one fellow there, an Indian businessman, and he had a couple of friends who were with him, and he was not involved with Baba at all. And as the Baba people would gather in the big giant lobby, he would make himself known, and with a friend or two, he would, you know, say disrespectful things. He thinks he's the avatar. He thinks he's this and that, but he's not. He's not the avatar. And they, look at them, they've spent all this money to get here. And he's carrying on like this. You know, he's definitely, they've wasted their time and they've wasted their money. And this is going on. So here I am, I'm sitting under the pandal, in the pandal, looking, and there's an endless line of people coming to walk before Meher Baba just to see him. And, you know, there's some people he puts special attention on, and, you know, gives something to this one, that his attention is focused on lovers as they come past, mostly Indians, all of them. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at, I can't believe it, there's the Indian businessman, and he's in line, and he comes up and he's just about to get right in front of Baba. He's looking like this. And Baba, just as his turn comes, a mandali or somebody comes to Baba with something important, and Baba turns away. Just as and then one of the helpers, you must move on. So he moves on and doesn't get even a glance from Baba. So that evening after dinner, there he is in the hotel. All the Baba people are there. He says, I had the opportunity to be there today, and I can tell you one thing. I observed him, I watched him, he's no different from you and me. Nothing. No, he's just like you, just like me. So they are wasting their time. But Baba is only attracted to love. So that was too bad for him. Anyone wish to say anything or ask anything? Yes.
In 2 or 3 sentences, could you explain to us the meaning of God's speech? There's a story behind that.
Oh, the essence of God speaks. Well, I'll tell you, Baba asked me that very question. Remember? He asked me that question in 1962 when I saw him privately before the East-West gathering. He said to me, could you sum up for me, which of my works have you read? And I said, Baba, I think I've read everything that's been translated into English, that's been written by or about you. And he said then, have you read God Speaks? And I said, yes, Baba, I've read it 3 times. And he said, could you sum up for me, in a nutshell, the essence of God Speaks? And there was a rumble amongst the mandali over there, about 20 mandali. And I said, it just came out of me, there was no effort. I said, The whole of creation exists so that the soul can find its way back. I was about to say God, but then to me, he was God in human form. The whole of creation exists so that the soul can find its way back to you. And he seemed very, very happy with that. Pleased with that. So does that satisfy? Yeah. Okay.
Cathy, would you like to sum it up with 12 words or more?
The whole of creation exists so that the soul can find its way back to Baba.
Hey, Baba. So if Ed would like to come up and close the meeting, we'll leave it up to you, Ed. I'm putting you on the spot.
That's all right.
He's on the spot.
He's on the spot. I do need a little light, though.
More light.
More light.
More light. You got the book? And of course, if anybody would like to purchase it, please see Cathy. She has a number of books up by the exit.
More light.
Here comes more light.
You know what? I'm going to stand over there and sing to your backs.
Wait a minute, Ed, come back. We're filming.
We want to see you.
Film. All right.
You're going to be a movie star.
The dawn light breaks against my grief of stubborn days. The world awakes, each thing to sing your praise. And I alone stir not as though it still were night. As a dull stone, though sun shines, gives no light. May her, all things reflect your face so fair. In each that sings you of yourself aware. But though I see your winning beauty everywhere, unless you give me love, what is all this to me? The dawnlight blooms within each heart, and nightingales their songs resume, which tell of sweet sad tales. And I alone, hidden in darkness night, remain, as a dull stone, though broken, knows no pain. May her, all things reflect your beauty rare. In every sweet song you alone are there. But though I see your winning beauty everywhere, unless you give me love, what is all this to me?
Ed, thank you.
Thank you.
And I think the only thing I can say is that somehow, somewhere, sometime, which Baba said himself, we will receive his grace. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.